Okay, Dr. Amani, so good to see you.
Thank you, Karen. It's so good to be reconnected with you again.
Well, we've met each other online many times in the past two and some years, hey? So it's been really great working with you. So it's wonderful. When we were, working with one of our organizations that we were working with, connecting doctors around the world, we'd get to the point where we're like, oh my God, we need some good news. What are we gonna do today? Then we'd be like, what's that Canadian doctor's name? I'm Neda, Dr. Neda Amani. Yes, let's bring her in. We're out of good news. Perfect.
That's good. That's a good thing to be known for. I'm happy about that.
Perfect. So we're recording this just before Canada Day. So
yes.
Hopefully this will go out before that. So I want to just read from your bio, Dr. Amani, just so that people watching, know about you. So we're going to talk about, our topic today is what is consciousness and how does it impact the Canadian culture? That's, our theme. It's going to be quite a short interview, probably about 20 minutes. So Dr. Neda Amani, MD, was born in Iran. She immigrated to Canada and became a medical doctor at the University of Toronto in good old Canada. Dr. Neda Amani is on the vanguard of preventative healthcare. And one of the main accomplishments from my perspective that you had in your career is working with the Ontario Police Service. So you created a program called the Real You campaign, which was launched with the Ontario Police Service in 2006. And since
Ottawa, yeah, Karen.
Ottawa, sorry, Ottawa, yeah, okay.
It's okay, it's okay.
Since its inception, over 800 leaders, officers, and civilian members of the Ottawa Police Service have been through the program with high success rates, transforming their clients' health, lifestyles, and outlook on life. So you work with a lot of the senior leaders in the Ottawa Police Service. Yeah, yes, wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you this question, and then let's see where we go. So, what is consciousness? And how does it impact the Canadian culture? You can break that into two. You can talk about just consciousness first, but I'd just like to keep our tone a little bit like more in Canadian terms because we're both Canadians.
Sure. So let's just back up for a second because I think the context of where my answer is coming from is rooted in my personal and professional experience significantly.
Yes. Okay.
So both as an immigrant to Canada, very proud immigrant to Canada at the age of 7 from Iran, as you said, and going through, I would say, a pretty difficult childhood, as most immigrant families do.
Sure.
With struggles, economic struggles, social struggles, language struggles, quite a bit of, like most people, fair share of different traumatic experiences as immigrants. A lot of great also opportunity to be coming to Canada, but so rooted in that, plus the experience of going through med school, which is quite a rigorous experience in of itself, right? Going through medical school and training, residency. My residency was even in family medicine, really focused in populations. It was at St. Joseph's Health Center, actually, in Toronto, where the primary clientele that I was working with were disadvantaged socially. And I chose this, homeless population, alcohol addictions, really disadvantaged population. And then my work going immediately into family practice, which immediately was a lot of immigrant women, because I was an immigrant, so a lot of women's health issues, which are pretty, complex, because also as immigrants, they have social issues on top of that. And then from there, being asked, to develop a comprehensive wellness program for the police force in Ottawa, and then really moving my professional career, completely dedicating it to that for over a decade. So I haven't been a family doctor since 2011, actually.
Oh, wow, okay.
And dedicated my full-time career until I retired myself, following God's guidance in February of this year, after 22 years from clinical practice, going into organizational health, leadership health, and then not only with the Ottawa Police Force, but I was asked to speak for and do programming for the Canadian banknote, RBC, socially disadvantaged population in Ottawa, and a lot of, from leadership training to, the whole gamut of psychological, social, consciousness, well-being. So this is where my experience is coming from, personally having lived through a lot of difficulties and trauma, and also my own health issues and family health issues, and then also professionally being asked to serve these very, very high risk populations, including leaders, very high level leaders across all kinds of sectors, for over a decade.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Okay. That's great.
Okay. So this is where this is rooted from. Now, my work from initially, again, we'll get to the conscious question, initially was to focus on how do you really augment and enable people's ability to be healthy and whole without the intervention of physicians as much as possible, particularly what I call the disease system that exists and has existed for at least the past 100 years, let's just say.
Sure.
Okay. And so in order to do that, this is what catapulted me into the study of consciousness, the power that we have within us, which is related to consciousness, our spiritual, abilities, our spiritual powers, the ability of our mind, the ability of our heart to be able to not only not get sick, prevent disease, but also to recover from chronic disease, mental illness, addictions, chronic pain, all kinds of autoimmune conditions, which we showcase this work. It's not just kind of airy-fairy talk. We actually showed this in our work with the police force and with, this higher risk population, and then saw the impact of it that then brought me into other organizations at the organizational level. So changes in the organizational culture, changes in the way that the organization was dealing with workplace conflict went down, absenteeism, increased presenteeism, all those impacts. So this is really important because when we talk about consciousness, and it's important in our not only individual lives, but collective, because we're all connected, we're all one, it's really important to note why my change and me looking at my spiritual well-being, my consciousness, where my mind and heart and my actions are, and how that actually is co-creating the world outside of us. Whereas most of us are taught from a very young age, myself included, and this is how we, this is the next, then it connects to the education system and the transformation that's now undergoing in the education system, which is so important, is we believe erroneously, or we're taught, that we are the product of our society. Yes, we are to a degree, for sure, right? However, more powerfully, we are the creators of the outside world. How I see the world, how I'm living my life, is actually creating the world outside of me. So when I'm talking about
I'm just trying to summarize and maybe just put it into terms and just see if I've got it.
Sure.
So it's basically consciousness from your perspective is recognizing that we're all connected, like on a spiritual level.
Absolutely.
Rupert Sheldrake would call it morphic resonance. It's, other people would call it the field. Lynn McTaggart would call it the field. But there's something, that we can't really see that connects us. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And that is actually, if you come down to it, the best word for it is love.
Yeah.
So yes. In the consciousness of love, which is the highest level of consciousness, right? Yeah. In that state, the mind is empty. It's what the Buddhists call the no mind, right? Yeah. And we are now just in the full presence of our being.
So have you read that book? I know you have, but have you read that book, Power versus Force? Is that kind of what?
That book I read almost 15 years ago, probably even closer to 20, before I even knew what it was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw, and it became a very important book, and I talk about it all the time. And God bless David Hawkins, who's passed right now, but he's still with us.
Yeah.
In energetic form. Yeah. In the sense that he talked very clearly about how, our potential. This is what we're doing right now. This is all this flux, all this chaos that's happening is actually moving us from a lower consciousness of fear and separation into a higher consciousness of love and unity or Christ
Right.
consciousness.
I agree. And just for the people who might be watching, I don't know who's going to watch this, but
Yeah.
hopefully lots, but let's see. My understanding of David Hawkins, and I haven't researched it lately, but I read that book about 10 or 15 years ago as well. And my understanding that he was a psychiatrist, or he was a medical doctor of some sort.
Yes. Yeah, he also was a medical doctor, psychiatrist though.
Yeah, okay. A medical doctor and a psychiatrist. And then he kind of would quit the medical system at one point, and then he kind of became a healer. And became a healer. Yeah. So he became a healer, and he was so good at it that he would have lineups around the door. And then he'd be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Like, I got 1,000 people in my office. I can't do them all, you know? And then I think his pattern was then he would stop doing that, and then he would write another book. You know, so that's what I know about him. If anybody hasn't read it, I'll put a link. I'll put a link.
This is a very important book. Very important book. And the map of consciousness is very, very important. And
the map of consciousness is brilliant. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'd love to be able to have a measurement stick.
Well, you can actually. Well, you can. You can ultimately energetically. We're going to just leave it at that for now. Another conversation, but ultimately you can energetically. But absolutely, any true person, whether they're a medical doctor or not, but any person that goes into the healing profession, if they go after the truth, will come to these. Will come to this conversation we're having. With this conversation that we're having it now in this language at this time. Probably because it's been the first time in our world history that the masses are being exposed to this information. But this has been talked about for thousands of years. This is not new. This is how yoga was created. And again, to put context, so I've studied pretty much as many as you can possibly think of the healing, healing paths and principles and identities, right? From, just extensively from yoga to acupuncture, energy medicine extensively. But also the spiritual paths, all the spiritual paths and the religions, the world religions also come in point, because these two are one. The spiritual journey is one with the healing and the health journey. And why it's so important right now is because that spiritual and health journey is the only way that we can get to world peace. And I want our conversation to be that about the importance of Canada right now, and especially in celebrating this Canada Day, is because if everyone just can step back, and when I had to do this for myself, it's not an easy task to do, and it's not an easy task to start on the path and to be committed on it. But when I realized that world peace depended on my own internal transformation to becoming healthier, happier, more peaceful, to heal my trauma, childhood trauma, social trauma, all of it, and ongoing, and then saw my world outside transform. This is so important right now for the elevation of the consciousness of Canada, is for people to really hear this and to really kind of take it to heart, rather than what we're taught to do, which is, look at what's happening outside and then bring it back in.
Yeah, exactly. And so just to put on a little lighter note, because this is going to be pretty short, what are you going to do for Canada today? How are you going to celebrate? Like, what do you think people can do to help themselves this Canada Day and help Canada be, on a better trajectory? I mean, I don't live in Canada right now. And I tell you, when I tell people I'm Canadian, they're all like, oh my God. I know.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, and we, I don't either. And I was called to come out to Texas. Called meaning God guided me to go to Texas in last fall, to help spread this message and transition into this new work that I'm doing, which is writing and speaking and talking about how do we elevate the consciousness and more. I would say kind of it's a ministry of its sorts, bringing the message of of love and Jesus, and just love and unity to people. I would say the best thing that people can do, I believe, is what I think is so powerful, is prayer, to be honest with you. And I know it's not a very it's not a very like out there thing. It's not a word that's in my vocabulary. But I mean, I'm not against it either. Do you know what I mean? No, I don't use that in everyday terms. But if a friend of mine uses that, I might go, they say, can we pray? I'm like, sure, but So I really want to, and this is perfect that it's not, right? Because I can honor the humanity within you, namaste, and we can use different languages and different approaches. So when I say prayer, I mean spend time spend time in meditation, in quiet time, really connecting to the source, to the energy that connects me to everything around me, all the people around me, to the plants, to the animals, to the trees, to the sky, to the earth, to the mountains.
Yeah.
And it's really taking that time before I start my day. So I do this now really fully disciplined, in a really disciplined way, because I find that if I don't start my morning in this way, I'm then being led by my brain and my ego, which has a role to play, but it doesn't really see the big picture, right? It's not, I've recognized that my brain is very, very minuscule ability in comparison to the universal mind. So the same force, the same power that animates the natural world can also animate us. And it's my time. When I say prayer, it's my time. I dedicate time to connect to that force so that my actions and my thoughts can be at a very high elevated level.
Yeah, so I do something similar, but it's totally different.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me what you do.
Okay, so what I do is I take first thing I get up in the morning, I have a coffee or whatever, just the first few minutes, and I kind of come to, and then once I've awake enough, then I get a white sheet of paper, plain white sheet of paper, and I get some colored pens, and I write the day. So, today I would have wrote, Wednesday, blah, 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 and then I put colors on it. And then I have to add colors, because if it's just black and white, it just feels like my old job in corporate Canada. I forget about it. No, I shouldn't have. So then I put colors, and then I figure out what I'm going to do that day. And then on a really good day, I'm like, oh, good. Okay, where am I going to go? Like, how am I going to be involved in my community? I kind of say, oh, I'd like to have this one experience today. Oh, what about if I just saw that person and, had a 10-minute chat? That would make my whole day, because I really love that person. So that's just what I do. And then I go and I create what I have to do for work. And then I go do my work. And then it's amazing. It gets done so quick like that. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so this is really important. So see, I just learned something. So first of all, the color is so important, because that's your joy. That's you bringing out the fun, your fun, joy. You have that about. So that's you bringing that out, and that's you reminding yourself of doing that. And then when you're sitting and you're going through of what to do, you're thinking, and I'm assuming this, if I'm wrong, tell me, but I'm assuming this from what you said, is that you're going through to see how can you bring more love, right? How can you bring more joy into your own day and into other people's day? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's part of it. And then the other part of it is just, for me, like, human connection is so important. So it's like, okay, how can I make sure I have like a nice human interaction today? And then the other question is really, how can I serve? How can I serve my friends, my family, the world, my community, all that, like that question. How can I serve is the essence of, what I'm doing on the planet right now.
So we're doing the same thing. I'm just calling it a prayer. What are you calling it? What are you calling it?
I don't know. That's just my to-do list.
Intention, exactly.
Intention.
And this is so important. If we didn't take 3 minutes to just communicate this to each other, and if you close your mind as soon as I said the word prayer, because you don't call it a prayer, or I closed my mind and said, oh, she doesn't really, she's a then that's not humanity, right? Exactly. So I say it like, so whatever it is that we're connecting to, we're wanting to connect to make it just better for everybody, which is like kind of the point now. The words I think is really important for us to hash out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We definitely, I think at the end of this, we're going to have, well, actually I do that. I'm talking to various people, and I'm like, oh, I say one thing to one person and they give me a look like that. And then I say something to another person and then they're high-fiving. I'm like, no, wait a second. I want to be able to say that same word to all different types of people. So I create words every day. I just create words. I'm like, well, I can't go into town and say that. So, and then also I'm in a Spanish speaking country, so I have to translate it into Spanish. So I end up with some hilarious times.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting that's coming up just right now is, if my heart is connected and open, wanting to make a human connection, you could be speaking, let's say I said the word, let's say I said a word, God, Jesus, whatever word that might trigger somebody.
Right. Yeah.
We could be able to have a really, really loving, kind, thoughtful, understanding conversation, and disagree completely.
Yes, exactly.
On the way I live my life and you live your life, yet leave feeling the love, feeling respect, feeling understanding and compassion. And I think this is, look at all, I mean, we don't need to rehash this, but look at all the things that we are all fighting against, right? This camp versus that camp, this versus this versus this. It's constant. And whether you call it God or nature, Wawa, consciousness, love, Jesus, God, it doesn't matter. The point of it is that we've all been created by a higher creator that we don't know. None of us knows. If anyone says that they know, we don't know. We're just all surmising, right? We're just all kind of like winging. We're winging it, really. But at the end of the day, like, why would I fight with you based on a belief system, right? That instead, what I can do is recognize that I am just one mere being amongst 8 billion, and there's a thunderstorm to confirm that. I'm mere one being amongst 7-8 billion human beings. And then I'm one mere being amongst infinite numbers. If you look at like mushrooms and the fish and the plants of non-human beings. So I only have like this one small slither view of reality. For me to think that I have anything bigger than that is really foolishness. And so if I can live with my life with being open to people's differing opinions, particularly people who disagree with me, I think that's the greatest gift actually that we can have, because then we can actually see the world and experience it in a much bigger way.
And
I think that's what consciousness is about, really. If we're looking at consciousness, right, is how can I have my mind completely empty of thoughts and of truths that I'm so connected to, believing that this is it, rooted in, and how can I just completely have my mind be expansive, like the infinite space, where all possibilities could exist that could contribute to peace and flourishing of humanity. And that's really, and that's why I call consciousness love, actually.
Okay. Nice. Okay, that's an easy thing for
I call it love. So I'm going to be celebrating Canada Day, to answer your question fully, because that was a roundabout way. Doing my prayer, my intentions in the morning, and then I have a friend from Canada. We're spending together, and we're going to be toasting and maybe have some maple syrup if she has some left.
Are you going to be playing hockey? Are you going to be playing hockey though?
No, no, I wouldn't play hockey. We'll just leave it at that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not playing hockey either. I might have I've got some, maple syrup from Quebec in my fridge. So I'll probably have some of that with my breakfast. I've got quite a few friends staying with me that are coming down to celebrate Canada Day together. So. Yeah.
And just because you brought that up, but the point, I think the greatest lesson that I learned was that when we take care of our spirit, right, when we take care of our body and our spirit, we recognize that we are just mere vessels for the highest will, for a higher to be done. So I always say, like the flower doesn't force itself to bloom, right? The tree doesn't force itself to grow up.
Right.
We, in our state of peace and health, we actually allow the highest good to come through us. And so if I'm gonna send a little love message to those my lovely doctors who I used to be kind of like in the past, and I actually saw that it wasn't the great, is for them to take care of themselves.
Yeah, wonderful. And we're gonna run out of time here because the meeting's gonna run out. But anyway, so great to talk to you again.
I thank you. I think that was really good. I think that was good. I hope you were able to communicate the message. Congratulations on your new show on the podcast. I hope. Can I send a little prayer wish for your podcast and for you? Is that God? I'm hoping and praying that dear Karen McKenna can be able to bring as much of the positivity and as much of the love and the humanity within Canadians out to not only just Canada, but out to the world with this podcast, and really showcase, be a real voice for all the good that's happening in Canada within Canadians.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, do you ever see that? I always like laughing, Have you ever seen that Bob and Doug McKenzie? Do you know who they are? So So have a good day, eh?
Hey.
Okay, I gotta run. Ciao.
Okay, thank
so
you.
much.
Take care. Thanks, Karen. Bye-bye. Bye.